Members Amendment Bill 2025 and has made amendments thereunto. An ciadómhar eile inis an bille sábháilteacht líne algorithm multa feithe sé an tarna céim. The next item, private members' business, the Online Safety Recommender Algorithms Bill 2026, second stage. And I call on the Deputy Paul Murphy, go léifear an bille den tarna huair inis that the bill now be read a second time.
Yeah, so move. What we have a choice in this debate about, and a choice in the vote tonight, is about whether the profits of social media companies are going to come first, or are we going to put the health and safety of children at first? That's the choice. Neil Martin, the Taoiseach himself, said that the damage caused to young people by social media is the public health challenge of our time. Minister McEntee previously asked, should we turn off the algorithm? Said, yes, we should turn off the algorithm. Simon Harris Taoiseach said that some things are more important than money, speaking about the need to regulate big tech in the context of the revelations about the mass production by these corporations for profit. Big words, great. But now we have a bill which implements the recommendation of the AI Committee. It implements it to the letter, what the AI Committee is calling for. We have a bill that recommends what is called for by the Irish Council for Civil Liberties, by National Women's Council, National Youth Council, by all of the experts who have looked at this area, which is to turn off the toxic social media algorithms that are force-feeding toxic content at our young people. And what does the government say? The government, in their amendment, declines to give the bill a second reading on the grounds that the issues the bill seeks to address are already being addressed by Commission Naman through its implementation of Ireland's online safety framework. You don't quite have the neck to just vote it down because you know this is popular, you know it's been supported by backbench TDs. Brendan Smith has called for this about a year and a half ago explicitly, the measure contained in this bill. It'll be interesting to see how he votes tonight. So instead you try to pretend to people that we're dealing with this issue. You're not dealing with this issue, and the reason we know you're not dealing with this issue is because the online safety code, which you're referring to, explicitly was amended to take this out. This was in the first draft, was precisely what's contained in this bill, which I'll go on to explain in a minute, and that was amended out. Why? Because big tech lobbied. Because big tech lobbied and said, actually, do you know what? The algorithms are great. They actually, they protect people, and that's why we need to keep them. And so then Commissioner Naman changed it and took it out. Right? So big tech lobbying won out over the safety of our children. This is the bill that will deal with, or significantly deal with, the issue of toxic content. It is, as I said, it's precisely what all the relevant expert groups are calling for. Just to explain what the effect of the bill would be, it is to turn off the recommender algorithm systems for anyone under 18 and turn them off by default for those over 18. So adults can choose to opt in if the algorithm is explained in a transparent way. You explain what you're signing up for and you can choose to opt in. But it's turned off permanently for under 18s until they reach the age of 18. This would have the effect of turning social media back to what it was supposed to be, what it was sold to us all about, as being a space whereby we can connect with our friends, build communities and so on, as opposed to, precisely as Neil Martin says, a thing that is creating a major public health challenge. Huge mental health crisis amongst young people in particular, but in society at large, driving a process of alienation, all for profit of these major social media companies. And let's be clear, this is why the government is opposing a measure to protect the health and safety of children. It's because these are huge, powerful corporations who have massive political sway and by which the government is effectively captured. The amount of money we're talking about in 2023, Meta generated over $134 billion in revenue. Advertising revenue was $132 billion of that. The parent company of TikTok, $120 billion in revenue in 2023. YouTube, global advertising revenues, $31.5 billion in 2023. X on track to bring in $2.5 billion in 2023. And the way these companies maximise their profit, and let's be clear, that's what they're interested in doing. They're not interested in creating safe spaces for young people. They're not interested in creating safe spaces for women. They're not interested in creating safe spaces for LGBTQ people. They're interested in maximising the amount of time that eyeballs are on the screen so they can maximise the amount of advertising that they can sell. That's what they're interested in. And their algorithms are simply designed to do that. And the consequence is literally the force feeding of toxic content to young people. I give you an example. There was a study done by the Centre for Countering Digital Hate called YouTube's Anorexia Algorithm, how YouTube recommends eating disorder videos to young girls. The study looked at what videos YouTube recommends to a 13-year-old Irish girl who first watches one video. She watches one video about eating disorders. She then gets 1,000 YouTube video recommendations. 2 in 3 of those videos that she's then fed over the next couple of hours or whatever relate to eating disorders or weight loss. 1 in 3 of those videos are videos advocating harmful eating disorders. 1 in 20 of those videos involve the promotion of self-harm or suicide content. Why are they doing that? Well, because Meta derives an estimated $2 million a year in revenue directly from a pro-eating disorder bubble on Instagram alone, and $230 million from all those who follow this bubble. That revenue includes that derived from underage users. That's from Fair Play for Kids, Designing for Disorder, Instagram's pro-eating disorder bubble 2022. There was another study done at DCU called Recommending Toxicity, the role of algorithmic recommender functions on YouTube Shorts and TikTok in promoting male supremacist influencers. The study set up 10 blank male-identified accounts. You go into a shop, you buy a blank phone, you buy a new phone, and you say you're a young man between 16 and 18-year-old. Of all of the male-identified accounts were fed masculinist, anti-feminist, and other extremist content within 23 minutes on YouTube. Some of these accounts, and to be clear, these didn't watch anything. They didn't choose to opt in for any of this stuff. They didn't even watch the one video which is referenced in the study in terms of anorexia and pro-eating disorder content being fed to young women. They didn't seek it out at all, and one of the accounts was fed this toxic misogyny within 2 minutes. Incredible. Since then, we have the development of so-called AI girlfriend apps, which is a thoroughly misleading term for apps with taglines like, quote, build your own AI slut, which incite boys to create child sexual abuse imagery by suggesting that they upload real photos of people they know from their school or wherever, and within minutes the app can then create extreme, degrading, deepfake pornography of girls in their class in school. To go back to the study from DCU, by 2 to 3 hours viewing, the vast majority of the content being recommended was toxic. 76% in TikTok, YouTube Shorts, 78%. By far the most prevalent of these was Andrew Tate. The other toxic categories were reactionary right and conspiracy, which accounted for 13.6% of recommended content on TikTok and 5.2% of recommended content on YouTube Shorts. Much of this was anti-transgender content, and the reports recommended, quote, turning off recommender algorithms by default. The professor who was involved in the study said the social media companies must come under increased pressure from the government to prioritise the safety and well-being of young people over profit. This is precisely the choice. To mention, I saw that Ken O'Flynn from Independent Ireland was opposing this bill, taking the side of the big tech companies over children, on the spurious grounds that he's opposed to censorship. To be clear, there is no iota, none whatsoever, of censorship involved in this. This bill would have no impact on the ability of people to create whatever content that they want and to put it on social media. What this bill simply does is to prevent and stop the force feeding of this toxic material to young people, and enables the rest of us to opt out of it or choose not to opt in to have this force fed to us. This is simple. It really is. Niamh MacDonald from the Hope and Courage Collective made the point at a press conference we had that we need to treat big tech as the big tobacco of our day. We need to take action now to prevent even more widespread harms. We have to turn off the toxic torrent of content at its source. Big tech companies, the billionaire psychopaths who own them, instead of the government's approach, and that's what they're pointing to in referencing the online safety code, of putting all the responsibility on individual users and on parents who are completely overwhelmed by all of this. I'm appealing to the government at this stage, withdraw your amendment, pass the bill. If you have detailed points to make, fine, let's do that in committee, but let's take the side of children, their safety, their health, not the side of the profits of big tech companies.
An Taoiseach Roderick O'Gorman. Cúig Nómant.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the deputies for bringing forward this important proposal today. And the Green Party welcomes this bill and the broader discussion about how we meaningfully protect children and young people online. And rapid changes in IT and the profound impacts that this is having on all our lives demand that we remain agile and responsive as a state to the needs to scrutinise these technologies for the public good. We cannot be passive actors in a world where policy is dictated by tech moguls. Ireland occupies a privileged position in Europe, being host to several major technology firms, but with that privilege comes important responsibility for taking a leadership position in making sure that these firms respect the rights of individuals. I've previously called in this chamber for Commissioner Mann to be given the powers to require all platforms to ensure that their recommender algorithms are turned off by default, and for these systems to be prohibited for accounts held by people under the age of 18. And this is just one more step we need to take to make the online space more safe, but it is an important one. I think the point Deputy Murphy made about this not being censorship, that all material is still available, it's just who it is recommended to, is a particularly important one. We know from research undertaken in Ireland that recommender algorithms are vehicles for supercharging the most extreme, the most toxic content that's available on the internet. The groundbreaking report from DCU's Anti-Bullying Centre recommending toxicity found that TikTok and YouTube's Shorts algorithms promote toxic content to boys and young men. Test accounts in that research were recommended an increasing amount of manosphere content, with the majority of messages promoting misogyny and bogus mental health advice. And the findings of this report point to the urgent and concerning issues for parents, for teachers, for policymakers, and for society as a whole. In particular, the findings demonstrate that the social media companies are failing to protect children and young people. Women and girls will disproportionately bear the consequences of this failure, but they are also profoundly damaging to the boys and men who consume this content, particularly in relation to their mental well-being. It's clear, therefore, that an effort to hook users and to generate profits from advertising revenue, social media companies have allowed the proliferation of algorithms that cause serious harm to individuals. It's particularly egregious that, at present, these algorithms are being used to manipulate the content that children are consuming. In discussing recommender algorithms, it would be remiss of me not to also mention another important external impact of these technologies, namely the energy consumed in running them. I acknowledge the role of the IT sector plays in our economy as an important employer here in Ireland, but we have to be honest with people about the trade-offs in terms of less capacity for housing connections and in terms of eating up the renewable energy capacity rather than allowing that renewable energy to replace existing fossil fuel sources. It's our responsibility as legislators to balance business needs with the needs of ordinary people to have affordable energy and safe online spaces. We cannot have a no questions asked attitude about this, as was suggested to me by the Minister for Finance last week, either to this or to the potential social harms caused by these recommender systems. We have to be honest with people that there are trade-offs inherent in these policy debates and not pretend that we can have unlimited growth in data while keeping electricity affordable. I'm happy, therefore, to support this bill, but we as a country will need to go further and be proactive in how we deal with the impact that tech is having on our society. My colleague, Senator Malcolm Noonan, spoke yesterday about the urgent need for X to attend the Media Committee to answer questions about the generation of inappropriate material via the Grok app. It's deeply worrying that the Taoiseach made so little effort to ensure that this happens. So I strongly urge the Government to take the issues of online safety more seriously and not to adopt a laissez-faire attitude to these changes. Business interests must not trump the interest of our young people.
Margaret, Ruth Coppinger.
And thanks, Cahirlock. So today, people will gather at 12:30 at O'Reilly Hall in UCD in what I anticipate will be one of the biggest protests there's been in UCD in decades, probably ever, I don't know. But I do know that everyone in the college and in other colleges is talking about what happened to a medical student. And the reason this is not removed from what we are discussing today. Do you seriously think that the rise of the manosphere has no connection with the rise in violent misogyny and with gender-based violence? Because if you believe that, you're living in cloud cuckoo land. Now, last night in prime time, they actually published, I was surprised, some of the horrific messages that have been sent to this young woman that have accompanied the image that was shared of her after she had been drugged and raped. And I'm not going to read all of them because they're too horrific, but let's bring a bit of reality into here as to what young women are having to suffer every day on the internet. So, you slutty garbage, I won't go into what they propose to do to her next. You obese slut, bastard, cocky suing bitch, disgusting whore, complaining bitch, and basically, I won't be happy till you're hanging from a tree. Now, it is obviously disturbing that there's people studying medicine that would actually draft messages like that. They really shouldn't be, and I hope the Minister is going to do something about that. But this is what women, the internet isn't a safe place for women, but neither is the world arising from, and that isn't even the worst of what I've read. So we've had the manosphere operating unchecked for years now, Minister. Teachers, the Rape Crisis Centre, everybody has been studying the impact of it. Andrew Tate has 10.8 million followers on Twitter alone. And we all know the statistic about 23 minutes a 16 to 18-year-old who sets up an account will be bombarded if you're a young man. So our young men are being groomed to hate women. And you don't seem to think that this is a problem because you've proposed absolutely nothing to deal with it. So you're going to not agree this bill today, but you haven't told us what you're going to do about it. I've raised this before. This is not new, and everybody has been telling you. Toxic masculinity has an impact. It has an impact on women's safety. It has an impact on children's safety. The Institute of Men's Health reported 73% of Gen Z are consuming this. 61% of all men consume this toxic, content regularly. It's being fed to young men at an alarming rate. And the ideas that it puts forward, that men should control women, that traditional gender roles are what we should have. And it's having a real impact. A third of young men believe that you can't change your mind after consenting to sex, that at no point can you change your mind after that. 46% of all men believe that people make up or exaggerate claims of non-consensual sex. That's according to a Dublin Rape Crisis Centre report. 40% of Irish men believe in traditionalist ideas of men and women, but it's much higher among younger men who are being fed this content. They agreed or they were unsure with a statement such as, men who don't dominate in relationships aren't real men, 52% in relation to that. And it's having an impact on young women and non-binary people. 67% of schoolgirls said their school environment is not a safe place. 70% feel social media negatively affects their mental health. I was going to come in there's no discussion on International Women's Day this week on the Dáil schedule, which I think is outrageous because, these issues are actually huge. But, I was thinking of reading out some of the comments that I've been exposed to just for being a woman in public life. And I'm sure other female TDs and other people, of course, and I'm sure people of colour even worse. But, the ASTI has been reporting on this, that a huge majority of educators note that online manosphere content negatively affects students. So, Minister, you've made a statement that Commission Naman is dealing with all this, it's all in hand. What are you going to say to people who are gathering in UCD today who absolutely understand the connection with these algorithms, who are grooming young men to be violent towards women, to be hateful of women, and the impact that is having on their lives? What are you going to say that you are doing about it? Because by opposing this bill, it really is shameful that and now we all know you're enthralled to the social media companies. Google, you absolutely never criticise a multinational company, particularly one from the US. That's just taken as read. We've seen that in relation to your foreign policy. But this is having a real impact on people, and it's having a real life impact on their mental health and their physical health.